So
What the money?
episode
Yes.
What the money? Yes. Uh, so I suppose episode 1 is all about who we are, why we're here, and what you could expect from the series, What the Money. And uh, kicking off, Brendan, tell us a bit about yourself, background and experiences. Where are you from? Why are you here?
Well, uh, what I will start off by saying is that most people don't know, although Ross has more hair than me, we are actually brothers, so we're related. So, background, I'm obviously spent a lot of time in lots of different industries and lived in different countries. So, what the money is really important as you grow, as you get older, you get to realize that the money system isn't what you thought it was, and that's what we're hoping to explore is to explain to people how money actually works and the evolution of money, should we say? Because obviously we've gone from bartering all the way through to where we are today with digital money. So yeah, my background is pretty much everything and anything. So marketing, sales, in finance, um, in startups, education, uh, business process outsourcing. So I've seen the 2008 crash, which was fun. So I've lived through at least one big financial issue. How about yourself,
Eh,
Ross? Yeah.
yeah, so I'll come back to my question in a sec, but I suppose about myself, I lived in a number of countries as well. I think that's a lucky component across a couple of different continents. So you got to see how different people live, how
Yeah.
different cultures interact, and what different cultures make of money, and trust in the system as well. So institutions, so not just government, but big institutions within our economy. So that could be banks, that could be the legal system, different institutions, and the trust in those in across different countries. From a background perspective, largely focused on healthcare, so and specifically digital health. So really deep in that in my day to day life. But from a what is money and why this is important to me is as I've learnt more about the system and learnt more about money and what money is, I've really come to understand that money has so many different use cases, and depending on where you come from, depending on where you are right now, having a good fundamental understanding of money and then how to best put your money to work for you based on your scenario, your situation as an individual is critical. And really keen to explore that with you, Brendan, and truly just uncover and help people uncover like what the money like what is money, why does it exist, and how can different people really get themselves ahead by truly understanding where money's come from and how they can move forward with money. But my question to you off the back of your experience was going to be across all of the different sectors, all of those different industries and those different countries, what are like some of the top 3 highlights that you've learnt. Like, what are the key learnings across education, sales, marketing, outsourcing? Uh, yeah, what have you learnt?
uh, I would like to, what have I learned? Uh, there's always enough money, but there's not always enough time. And I think that's what people don't, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. I've learned most of it coming out of, so maybe in the last 5, 10 years, maybe is the most I've learned about money because it's become more important. Um, because you realize that you have only so much time in your life and you need to, that time equates to money at some point, and that money you need to put to work. So I view money as being little workers for me, and you need to put them to work. The other side of it as well is being in very different countries and moving a lot. You see how people operate in money, and I think mine is the biggest thing I've learned is that there's always enough money. So it doesn't matter what market you're in, there's always enough money. So they're always printing more and more money, and what people don't understand by printing money and injecting it into the system is that it actually dilutes your money. So inflation has been like um, has really been the killer blow for me that I've learned over time.
Yeah.
Is inflation has been the key thing.
I think I've heard the term of inflation being called the silent killer, where governments get to inflate the currency, aka print more money, and it's not necessarily seen. And that's going to be a really interesting topic for us to explore through this series, and truly help educate and help people understand, like, what is inflation and what is the silent killer of savings in the bank account, and why should we be putting our money to work in. What about hobbies over the last couple of years? Where have you got new hobbies, started to explore new things? What sort of things have you been getting into?
Um, I think the biggest thing that's struck me over the last couple of years, and not necessarily, I wouldn't say hobbies, but more than hobbies, are I missed out on the opportunity for Bitcoin when it was first came out. So in the UK, in about I think it was 2010, somebody was talking to me about Bitcoin. I missed out on that opportunity, and I didn't actually understand it. And that from that actually was born my passion to dive into what is the money, like to understand what is money and why is this thing a differentiator, which then helped me to understand money markets and to move from there. So I think, and then the other part of that was, the second opportunities was you with Ethereum when you offered Ethereum funding, and then that was another opportunity that was okay. Well, that wasn't captured, and why, and what was the result of that? And then to watch how the evolution is like we're at this point where things are changing. So as far as hobbies are, I just got really into the digital aspects of things, and this new tech, these new technologies that are emerging. So there's new pipelines being built, and this plumbing is changing, and it's really interesting to watch. So as far as hobbies are, it's amazing to be able to own pieces of art now. So, and trading cards that are like digitized and there forever. So these things I think are mostly my hobby. I mean, my hobby has always been curiosity. So I've always been extremely curiosity. So tagline is living a life like, my philosophy, a philosophy of curiosity is what I like to refer to. So always curious. So hobby is curiosity.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and interestingly enough, my tagline is, um, challenge deliberately, and explore mindfully, which is going to be interesting how that plays out between the two of us, with the curiosity, and then my challenge on the other end, as we try and really unpick what the money and how this evolution has occurred, one, over time to where we are now. But you made a really interesting point where we're on this next cusp of what this digital money might be, and it's not just moving money from physical paper to a bank account, with zeros and ones in it, or just a number in it with a bank card, or Apple Pay, but actually beyond that into this new world of what money could be, what money could look like, and exploring that underlying technology that you called the pipes as to how that comes together. So I think this will be really timely and really interesting as we go through this history and truly unpick what money has been over time, as we explore and start to understand and deep dive into what this next bit of money, or next bit of technology could enable, and probably challenge society as we know it, when it comes to institutions, when it comes to individuals, when it comes to countries, and how is that going to challenge, and what is the stepwise dynamic shift when it comes to money historically, to this component, or point of time where we are now. And as we move forward, what would you like to learn through the next series, or time together? What are a couple of things on your mind that you'd love to learn, explore, challenge your thinking on?
No, I think it's more about going a bit deeper, I think the journey so far to us just starting this has been really interesting in the fact of challenging what perceptions you have of money, and then realizing and really taking this really wide bird's eye view of it and looking from a very high level, and then coming straight into a very specific thing and looking at that and saying, okay, well, if we look at this process of money and we view like money as technology, because it's quintessentially it's all technology, it's just evolving, and we can look at this process and this technology and we can really pinpoint through history how it's evolved and how it's changed. And it's been really exciting and interesting to do that. And that's what I look forward to doing, is really exploring the intricacies of this technology to understand how it affects us on a daily life, and then build that up from you and me as individuals in this system and going up the layers. So like, where does institutional come in, and then where do governments and countries come in, and then looking at it at a macro level of like globally, how do these puzzle pieces dance together to create this global economy, rather than just, our little narrow view of what's actually happening. And it's been really eye-opening to explore those. And I look forward to carrying on to explore those. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a technology. And when you frame it that way, you look at it in a very different way, because it's a new perspective when you view it as a technology.
Yeah, and over time, money has allowed us to globalize and become so much more interconnected, and the
Correct.
necessity to really understand how it all comes together, and uncovering that and unpiecing that, um, is going to be a fascinating journey to go on, and really zoom in on some critical aspects of that journey, and of different elements of the financial system, and why your statement up front, where we have enough money, there's so much money, but not enough time. So we're
Yeah.
actually time poor as a resource versus money poor. And I'll probably add one in there. I also think we're probably skill poor. So we don't necessarily have the right skill mix all the time to achieve.
Yeah.
So there's money there. There's a lack of time and a lack of skill. So how's this economy going to change over time? And what could evolve as money has adapted, and what has unfolded in history,
Yeah.
and how do we then take what has happened through history, and how do we look at what are the moving dynamics currently, and how that might shape and unfold, as we move forward. So it's going to be really, really interesting, to explore this, the journey of what the money, and educate others,
Yeah.
alongside our own education and exploration, with
You-
curiosity and challenging.
You've underpinned it. So the driving forces for us are educating ourselves and then realizing that there's a gap. And then can we, through our exploring this and our curiosity and driving for questions, so running on what you said was like asking these questions, how do we get to understand it better? So can we utilize our valuable time and share that valuable time in our learnings for other people? Hopefully they can understand better. And again, that boils back to the industry you're in and the industry I'm in. I'm currently in education. So with government, you were previously with government and also in public health. So those two facets, the time poor element and the skill sets, are rampant through our education. Is the
Mm.
first step for people to understand how things operate. And if that narrative or that information isn't there, it can lead to problems down the line of stress and all the rest of it. So, or even educational health in primary education. So, I mean, for you and I, we're super passionate about the preventative and the pre rather than the post element. So this is kind of post, but hopefully it'll be pre for a lot of people, that we can help them
Yeah.
before they start.
Yeah, definitely. And that just made me think, like, when you spoke about the education system, and much like the health system, but specifically in relation to education, I have so many people, I hear it all the time, where they go, "Oh, I wish school taught me about taxes. I wish
Yeah.
school taught me about investing." Like,
Hmm.
algebra, never used it. Have never
Oh,
used it since high school. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure some people in some industries, in some sectors, and there's a reason why our education system is built that way and structured that way. But there's just this missing gap, and over time, there's been more and more gaps made. Like when our parents were at school, I remember mum saying she had cooking classes. I think they
Yep.
called it domestic, and they had knitting and sewing.
Yep.
Those classes have been taken away for STEM. And we can see the outcome of that now, where we have a lot more technology, we have a lot more engineering, and we've have had a lot of progression in those sectors, which is amazing to see for human evolution. But the next thing that's missing, and I don't know if you've heard the same or have a different antidotes, but yeah, just the number of conversations that I hear where, oh, I don't understand tax, I don't understand investing. I don't really know what inflation is. I know it's a bad thing. I don't really understand interest rates. Um, I don't know how to take on debt. I don't know how to buy a house or buy a share in a company or buy crypto. I don't really understand how to do it or why I should do it. And what are the implications to me? Because we're just not taught it in our education
Yep.
system. So, yeah, I do you have any similar antidotes from what you've been hearing?
Well, being in education, over 12 years, I've seen the steady decline. So you see the decline because the children who've left since I started are now starting their own families. So some of them have their own children. So you see
Mm,
that. And I think when we go back to education, education is another topic that maybe on the back end of what is the money, we can talk about what is the education,
mm,
because education is fundamental to understanding and building those building blocks in any civilization and or community or
mm,
country. So if you're not giving enough to that bottom part, and there's a really cool analogy around this, which I can't remember who said it, but people at school you get to collect dots, and at the same time you should be able being shown how to connect those dots. And that's what's missing in education sometimes is we go in like you and I both been to school and we go, I don't I see that I'm collecting these dots, but I don't know how to put these dots there. I can't connect them. And then we leave school, we then start connecting those dots. And sometimes that's too late. So if you think
mm.
about financial education or even we talk about cooking, by the time we leave, we're busy, 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 and we're trying to connect dots and we may miss a lot of these things. So financial stuff falls away. Taxes,
Mm.
taxes is one of the biggest things that's anybody should learn. That is probably the biggest win. If you think you're giving at least a third of your economic output, you should understand taxes because that's a third. So if you know how to be efficient there, you can save yourself a lot without having to go out and try and get a raise from your employer. There's a lot there. Or saving that means you have time to go, you can go and invest that somewhere else and it starts working for you. So over time, it's like another job. You're putting that money to work for you.
Yeah, and when you say economic output, what in layman's terms, what is economic output?
Oh, okay, so I put a broad label over. So when
Yeah.
you work for somebody, you get paid for it, and when you get that money, then a part of that, your salary, if you look at your paycheck, a part of that's going. You can see your taxation. So depending on what country you're in, if you're in European Union, for instance, sake, most governments have sort of you have your social taxes. So you'll have like your unemployment, you'll have your social security, you'll have your what is the other one? Your national health taxation, and then obviously your employer taxation. So your governmental tax. So, and that generally speaking is roughly, I think most places in the world is about 30%. You start off at maybe 20 and then you quickly hit 30%. So most places in the world you tax at roughly about 30%. So that's close to a third of your time. This is where we come back to time,
Yeah.
everyone only has 24 hours a day. You're giving a third of that over to taxation. So if you understand
Mm.
taxation, that's probably the quickest way to get claw some back and then put that to work. So again, then that's the next step is how does money work? how do I put it to work? So being efficient, how do I put it to work? And you making sure that my economic output is as efficient as possible.
Trying to summarize what you've said, it's essentially I have so much time
Yep.
in a day, and approximately between 7 and 12 hours of that day goes to an employer. So I go to work, and that time I get paid for in a salary, whether that's made up of base and commission, or that's just made up of commission, or whether that's paid by the hour. However, I'm paid for my time. That is my economic output. And
Correct.
so, if you put that in another term, you go, if I work for a month, which is 4 weeks, if I work for 4 weeks and a third of my money is going to the government in taxes, which is the government's revenue, that means, is it like just over a week every month of my pay is going through to the government?
Well, just
One in
under, yeah.
four?
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would, well, 1 in 4 would be 25%. So I think it's just over if it's 30.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, a third, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
well, you got 20
just
21.6 days in a month on average. I think it is
yeah.
working days.
Yeah.
So that's 7 days, just over 7 days
Work.
of
Yes. Just over
working
7 working
days.
days.
So if
Yeah.
you work Monday to Friday, 7 days are going to the government
Yeah.
in taxation.
That, yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something
Um,
we're going to cover later, is to understand there's patriotism and nationalism, and then you have to put a lens on it to think about a government, because you and I have lived in multiple countries. When you're paying taxation to the country, you're paying it for services rendered. So you're
Mhm.
investing or paying for a service, and you should see value in that cost. We're not saying that taxation is bad. What I'm saying is, look at what you're getting in return for that taxation. So you're paying for services from the government. So the money that goes into the coffers of the government isn't the government's money, it's your money placed there for them to render services. And when people start viewing it through that lens, it's not the government's money, because that's one of the biggest flaws. It's not government money, it's your money and everyone else's money in the economy, your economic output. So the time at work, your third of that is going to pay the government. They like to give the government the money to render the services. So if you ask for more money from the
Yeah.
government, you're just asking for your more money back.
Yeah. And when you say services, what are the normal services rendered by traditional governments around the world?
So if we take South Africa, we like where you and I like started schooling and that. In South Africa, they have social welfare, but not the same, like not as much. Because it's not a particularly rich country. I mean, it is rich in comparison to the rest of Africa, of course. It's a economic powerhouse. The services rendered for the tax aren't as much because so many people are unemployed. So the system hasn't got enough money, as in the government, to offer the services to the entire population. But if we move to other countries, like say you're in Australia and I'm in like Austria, you have a different, first world countries are very different. They have a lot more money. Therefore, we have different services. So you have a really, generally speaking, a robust healthcare system for your population. Your education system is pretty much on par with the rest of the world, maybe not the best, but you have a very good education system. And then you have obviously the infrastructure is the next part of government, is investing in infrastructure. Although you have privatization, they do heavily invest in infrastructure. So that's your roads and your ports. And then obviously the biggest factor which people often forget is security. So in order for you to be able to live your life, the security aspect comes into it. So that's your local police forces, but then on top of that, and then your emergency services, and then your military. So your military presence really helps to make sure society operates and that nobody can come in and just take everything away. So that's the other side of it.
Yeah, and I think you did say this at the start, but maybe not as explicit as the other ones, and that is like aged care
Pensions, yeah.
pensions and but potentially disability pensions if someone hurts themselves. as well as unemployment
Yeah.
benefits as well. So if someone is out of work, they also get paid, and those are all there for really good reason to ensure like society continues to operate, continues to function, and people have the opportunity to continue to exist as a fellow citizen, to stay on their feet with the intention of seeking employment and proactively and productively contributing back to society, which creates the whole flywheel effect of an organization of a
Well,
country
I'll throw a
running,
spanner
which is
in
what
that, but
we'll
yes, I
dive
think it's
into.
got to do with the broken window analogy. So if there's one broken window on the street and it doesn't get repaired, so it gets broken, gets repaired, gets broken, gets repaired, and eventually somebody
Yeah.
stops it, then you'll see the whole street will have go into disrepair. It's the same as garbage on the streets. So the perception then becomes of people that that's the status quo, and then it doesn't matter, and then people forget because there's no accountability and there's no consequence, and you can see people don't care anymore. And it's yes, there's a care element to supporting people in your economy and in your country or region or community, because it goes back to community. But I think most of that has to do with the broken window, because civil unrest starts
Mhm.
from that. So if loads of people are unemployed and have no options, you then have civil unrest. It's the same with education. So education, as we could learn at home, we could learn by ourselves with help, but it's actually better to have the youth inside in school. And it's not about caging them; it's about giving them a objective. Isn't the right word. It's it's setting them up in a place where you can help them to educate themselves to move on and become productive members of society is quintessentially what it is. But if you left them to their own devices, they probably would create anarchy. So that's the darker side of
Mhm.
if you didn't have schools, and you can see that play out in Africa and places where there's civil unrest and there's lots of civil wars where education isn't. You can see what happens. The youth are radicalized because you're easy psychologically to it's easier for you to be manipulated or to get, which is another part of education. We won't touch on that. Ross has got his eyebrows going.
Uh,
Oh, Brendyn, you're going too deep
yeah.
for an intro.
Yeah. I don't know if I mean, that's more on education versus, money per se, but the yeah, I think that there's an interesting thing there in around the broken glass theory, uh, and where my mind went, which it was different to where your mind went there, was around the
Yeah.
incentive structure, and how money is actually used as an incentive structure to link it back to money. But to explain my thinking around the incentive structure there and how I got there from the broken windows and maintaining the status quo within society, is it's in the governments or in any, so it might be government, so at a country level, it might be at an institution level, it might be at a company
Or
level, organization, could
homeowners
be a
in a street.
charity, or it could be a family unit. Yeah, or homeowners in the street. It's their incentive structure is actually to maintain the status quo. So we don't necessarily want to change. And the reason for that is change is uncertain, change is unknown, and change might negatively impact you. So lots of people
Mhm.
like to hold back from change, and their incentive structure is to maintain what they know. So it's you'd rather the saying is you'd rather deal with the devil you know
Yeah.
than the devil you don't, and that really runs true with humans
Yeah.
everywhere in relation to change, and in relation to the commentary around schools and it keeping people in schools or having an education system. It is about driving productive humans, as you said, but the productive human component is around driving and leveraging humans'
Hmm.
habitual nature. So humans
Yep.
like habits. They like sameness and they don't like change. So it's actually creating a structure to allow kids entering the education system, which will allow them to prosper or not prosper, depending on how you look at it, within the wider economic
I'll push
productive environment that has been
I'll
created
push back heavily
for
on it,
us.
but
Yeah.
it's probably for another. It's a really
Yeah.
big discussion about education. I think education plays a massive
Yeah.
role in finance, like understanding how,
Yeah.
because governments spend so much money on it, and it is such a massive labor bill on most governments, teachers, and people who are in education.
Mm.
So I think it's something we can touch on, but I would push heavily back on that. I think there's more factors to it than just creating productive people. I think that's the fairy tale that's sold, and I think there's a lot of other factors that don't necessarily align with that. And I think there's more undercurrents that are pushing it that way because you need to be productive as in a society. And if both parents aren't at work and there's no place for the children to go, because children need to grow up and pay the pensions of the older generations. So it's this flywheel effect that you need to put them somewhere so that the parents can go to work, so that the parents can be productive and pay the bills, because you need that economic output and you need to drive the economy and the GDP. So I think there's a lot more to it than just this utopian, "Oh, this is great. Let's educate them. Let's give them a future." I'm not saying that people that isn't a component of it. I just don't think that's the driving force behind it. I think it swings and roundabouts in governments. They realize, oh, we got a problem. We haven't got enough intellect, and most governments they just import that. That's the sad reality, and that's how again this is built into finance. Why does the government decide to import people? It's like why, like Australia, for instance, like why does Australia keep changing its immigration policies and fine tuning them into where there's an issue? So they've got a like Australia looks out 10 years and said, we know what we need in 10 years for economic output and how to drive the economy. Therefore, we're going to open up this thing. The US is doing the same. The US has very structured way in which they're doing it, and they're pivoting again. And Europe is very much behind. So they're countries in Europe that are very staunch on who they allow in because they really want to drive the economy and they want to make sure it's the maximum benefit for the entire economy, their entire economy, because they're trying to actually benefit their citizens.
And what is GDP?
Gross domestic product. So it's the output of what you create in your economy. So I think this maybe is a good opportunity to move that into talking about it in the series rather than in the intro because you're getting too deep in it. But yes, gross domestic product. So it's basically output of the country in economic terms, and that's also how your forex works. So that's how your currency works. Depending on how strong your economy is, your GDP is a reflection of that. So how much output are you creating, and how much are you exporting, and how much are you importing? There's all these nuances to how that works, and then in the global economy with your currency, which is also a little bit of manipulation there, but generally speaking, you that's how your currency, the strength of your currency looks.
Yeah. And currency in relation to others is forex, which is foreign exchange. Yep.
Yeah, so each
Cool.
country has its own
Uh,
currency, or so some of them are, but the global currency is the US dollar. So everything is underpinned and all trade is done internationally in US dollars, or has been until like the petrodollar has ended. So there are other currencies now.
in trying to wrap up this episode, final question: what is money to you?
At its most basic form is a medium of exchange. So some people argue that it's um, a medium, a store of value, but it's a medium of exchange to me.
Yeah. So, for you or in general, like
No,
what
money
is
to me is
money
a
to you?
medium of exchange. So, like, as in fiat currency, it's a medium of exchange. It's that you and I can agree that there's a value associated to this metal or this note, or digitally, as we can obviously I can send you money digitally. not cryptocurrency, I mean literally fiat I can send you through PayPal, we can determine a value of, a value of time, and then we can say here, and that's how much it's a medium of exchange. I can exchange this with you for something. So other people argue that it's a store of value, but as we'll get into, why it's possibly not a store of value over a long enough time horizon.
Yeah. So medium exchange, you can have
Yep.
euros which you've earned in a salary, and then those euros can go through foreign exchange, converted into Australian dollars, and then
Yep.
those can be sent across
Well,
and
US
land in
dollars
my
and
bank
then
account.
Aussie
Yeah.
dollars, but yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
with Swift. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Cool.
what is money for you then?
Anything else to wrap up? Yeah, money for me is the ability to buy goods and services, like
So,
to buy things I want. Money to me is
okay.
lifestyle.
Well, money's also a tool, I think.
Yeah, it's
It's a tool. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is that like I think yeah yeah money for me is more about I can if I have it and I can use it if I can earn it productively in an effective way and I can put it to work productively, which we'll go into, it creates abundance as we've just articulated at a global level. There's enough money around. There's so much money around. So for me, money is about how do I get it? How do I put it to work? And then how does that create or enable the lifestyle that I want to live personally and for my family? So money for me is the ability to live the way I want to and do the things I want to do and
Yeah.
experience in my life. And it'll allow me to challenge even more um, deliberately and really it try and unlock and educate. So that is what money
Yeah, so then
is
it's a
to me.
technology and a tool. So you just wield the tool in whatever it
Yeah,
is, or it's a toolbox really, because you could take out a knife, you could take out a hammer, you could take out a calculator. The money is so like money or fiat is so the currencies are so versatile. It's adaptable to deliver whatever outcome you're looking to deliver. So maybe that's where it comes back to
yeah,
being a technology. So it's how you wield that
yeah.
technology.
Cool. Yeah. So money is
Yeah.
a technology. Yeah.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, that is a wrap for what the money
Yep.
number
This
one.
is true. This is the end of the first one. So thank you for staying with us and enduring the conversation. Hopefully, the next episode you'll enjoy as well. Ross, thank you for the questions. I didn't ask you enough, but hopefully there'll be more in the following episodes in What the Money. So cheers.